Hello, everybody. Hello. Hopefully you can all see me and hear me. I just had a monitor blowout, but I'm back. I am Bill, the company's expert. This is the live stream that I do at least once weekly. This week it's going to be twice this week, where we talk about job search, how to get hired. And this is episode number 142 of How to Get Hired. This is called Why Do You Want to Work Here? Best answer. So we're going to be kicking things off with that. If you can see my face, then you should be able to see a chat box somewhere in the vicinity of my face. If you are watching this on whatever device, any manner of device. And if you are a subscriber to my channel for any amount of time, you should be able to get in there and ask questions. Tell me what's up with you. Let me know anything that you're wondering, anything you're struggling with, and I will do my best to help you out. That's the whole point of this. It's an interactive live Q&A. Special shout out goes out to my super thanks donors. Those are always nice to get. My YouTube channel members, you guys are awesome. Membership has its privileges. And my Patreons, and of course to you, my viewers, and my participants. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's get into it. As you can tell, I'm a little bit flustered. I've got a setup here where I have two monitors. I've got a little bit of a little webcam on top of each monitor here. And one of my monitors, my main monitor, it blew up or something. It would not come back. It was just blank. So I had to find another monitor, hook it up, all in a panic, and get it working. So the monitor I'm using now is beige, ladies and gentlemen. It's beige, like, this is 1978. Back in the good old days where we knew where we were. Yeah, so here we go. Okay, let's, sorry, my head's not quite here yet, but let's take your questions. I see there's already, Petro is here. It says, greetings from South Africa. I am happy to be here. Well, thank you, Petro. Welcome, welcome. And if you have any questions, you know what to do. Ask them and I will answer them. Now, without any further ado, let's get into the title of this stream. Why do you want to work here? Best answer. Let's talk about that briefly. Okay, so this is a question that you're going to encounter. It's one of those weird questions. It's half kind of resembling one of the standard job interview questions, which is, why do you want to work here? Okay, it's very, very similar to, like, what are your strengths? Why should we hire you? Like those kind of questions. It's like the strength question, So this one is like another form of that, but also it kind of, there's some overlap between that and its own question, where basically the whole point of it is to see if you've done research on this organization. So if you apply for a job and they invite you down for an interview, you go to the interview, and then they ask you this question when you get to the interview. They say, well, why do you want to work here? It could be either them saying basically, like, what are your strengths? You answer by saying, well, as I understand it, you're looking for somebody who has this. Well, I have those things, so it seems like a really good fit, right? That's the strengths question. But also there's overlap into this other question, where what they're doing is they're trying to see if you actually know about this organization or this company that is hiring you or wants to hire you. What do you know about them, right? So it's almost like that question where they say, have you tried our product, right? Or our service? Okay, if you apply for a company, that is something that they can ask. It's not a standard job interview question, but occasionally they'll ask you that, depending on what the company does, right? If they are an industrial lubricants manufacturer, then it might not be relevant. But if they make donuts or something, it's an obvious question. If you want to work here, have you ever tried our donuts? What did you think? Right? That's a reasonable question. So that's where they're coming from here. Why do you want to work here? So if you haven't taken the time to do 2 minutes of internet research on this organization before you show up at the job interview, that's bad. That signals a bunch of bad things about you. You could basically not be interested in this company at all. You could not know anything about the company, in which case that's a red flag for them, right? You're just someone who's looking for a paycheck. You really don't care what you're doing. And that's honestly not the type of person they want to hire, right? We all know that that's most of us, but the recruiter's job and a hiring manager, they're shooting for the moon. They're shooting for someone who wants to work here. They know extensively about this company. They know about their products. They love their products, and they want to specifically work here as opposed to anywhere else, right? That's what it's about. So don't give kiss-off answers like, when they say, why do you want to work here? You don't say, so I don't starve, right? Don't do that. Okay, they've heard that before, and that kind of misses the point of the question. They're wanting to know if you know about them. It's based on the theory that the candidate that shows the most enthusiasm will be the candidate, if hired, that will last the longest in the job. That's the principle that's loosely driving this. It's very flimsy, but yet that's what they're going on. Okay, and what are they pushing for here? Basically, they're wanting to hear organizational flattery. They're wanting you to flatter them. Not them personally, but the organization, the company, right? So, you would say, well, I know this about, this organization. You guys have been doing this for this many years. You are a leader in this area. You produce these products and these services. This is the one that's like a really big hit. That shows who you're hiring with, right? Okay. And then you give the reasons why that's a good thing for you. Either you love the product or you have skills that tie in with that, right? There's like some reason behind why you think this is a good thing. Okay. And then you can say something like, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Insert reason, right? Okay. What are they looking for in a job interview? They're looking for many things, but one of the principal things is someone with the right attitude. If you go down there and, you're just, like you're angry, or you've got a bad attitude, or you take offense extremely easily, or you can't communicate properly, you misunderstand what they say and they're not getting what you say. These are red flags. They're looking for things like this, right? So if you go down there with the right attitude, you're enthusiastic about working here, and there's a reasoning behind it that makes sense. You know about the company, you know what they do, you like it, it ties into something you do or a goal you have or an ambition you have, whatever, okay? And basically they hire the candidate they like the best. This is a well-known thing. That's what job interviews are about, right? Okay, so to sum up, to give you an answer here, when they say, why do you want to work here? What's the answer? Well, talk about the organization. What do you know about the organization? That would be like a reason to work there. Their products or services, right? Okay, and then, maybe explain that I want to be a part of that for the following reason. Okay, so you give an answer along those lines. I know that's very kind of nebulous, but you give an answer along those lines. They see, okay, you've done your research, right? First off, you know who you're interviewing with. You're enthusiastic. You specifically want to work here as opposed to just needing a job, right? That suggests you fit with this type of work. You fit with this organization, okay? And, you're enthusiastic. You know what you're getting into. And, if you have strengths that tie into this organization and what they're doing, then that kind of backs it up, right? So that's basically how you answer this question and what they're looking for here. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, we can get into it. Okay, Petro says, I personally want to work for the company I'm employed at the company's what? As the company's values coincide with my own. Okay, well, that's a good situation to be in. Tong says, is it okay to make assumptions in the answer? Usually it's making assumptions is not a good thing, but let's see here. I would have no idea if I could grow within that company, but I feel like that is not a bad thing to say. Same with company values, etc. Listen, Tong, what you got to recognize is that this is the sales process. When you go to a job interview, you're selling yourself. You're basically pitching yourself. You're saying, all the other candidates you've been speaking to, you need to tell them all to go home and you need to hire me. And here's why, right? Okay. Now, a lot of detail-oriented people and a lot of technical people, they get hung up on some of these job interview questions because they're understandably, they're trying to answer the question from a technical point of view. So, for example, a popular job interview question is the future question when they say, where do you see yourself in 5 years or something like that, right? Okay. Now, if you're like a technical, detail-oriented person like me, you won't like that question because it's very hard to give an accurate answer. They're asking you for essentially a blind prediction about the future, which you can't give with any accuracy. And ironically, the number one thing that you would need to know to predict the future is, are they going to give you this job, right? They would know more about that than you do, right? But yet they're asking you, where are you going to be? It's not a technical question. They're not asking for a prediction about the future. Really, what that question is, they're wanting to know, what type of work do you want to do? If you could pick, you could do anything in any company. You could get whatever job you wanted. What job would you get? What would you choose, right? What are your preferences? What are you suited to? That's what the question really is about, right? It's not a technical question where you have to predict something blindly. They're asking you a question about your opinions, your predilection, your taste. Like, what would you prefer to do? Okay. So that's kind of like this question. They're saying, why do you want to work here? Right? So when you're saying, is it okay to make assumptions in the answer? I have no idea if I could grow within that company, but I feel, looking at a company from the outside is totally not the same thing as being on the inside of it and seeing how it really works, right? Everyone knows this. You know this. I know this. They know this, right? So they're not asking for this isn't like a deposition or like a contract you have to sign, right? Where you're going to have to put your money where your mouth is, what you say. Okay. They're basically saying okay, in your thing, you're saying, I have no idea if I could grow within that company, but I feel like it's not a bad thing to say. Yeah, it's like you take your best guess. You say, look, I know you guys, you prioritize this. For example, Toyota, the car maker, right? It's well known that they've prioritized quality in terms of customer satisfaction with their product. They prioritize that over things like cost competitiveness. Right? That's a well-known way that company is run and has been for about 60 years at least. Okay? So you say I like that type of thinking. I understand the idea is that, even though you're not always taking the cheapest option now, if you take the highest quality option over time, you will still win because at the end of the day, people care about something that meets their needs and meets their wants. And even if they have to they have to pay a little bit extra for that, they'll choose that, right? So I agree with that. I agree with that value. I think that makes a hell of a lot of sense. And I think that that's the preferred approach. And that's why I'd like to work here for you guys, because I know that that's one of the company's values. Right? It's not about making a prediction. It's not about, you're having to stand by your answer and, they're going to come back to you 5 years later and check what you said. No, it's about saying, look, I'm suited for this type of work. I think there's something to indicate that I would fit in here and I would work out as an employee. Here's that reason, right? That's all. Okay, so don't get too hung up on technical details. It's really a question about you, your preferences, what you're like, what you're looking for, right? That's really what this question is about. Okay, you can't predict what the future is going to be, but you can say look, I think that's good. That aligns with what I think. Therefore, That's why I'm more drawn to your company than I am to others. Kian says, do you think there are cliches when answering this question? Hello. Job interviews themselves are a cliche. You're not going to get honesty, and you're not going to get any kind of real serious analysis. It's all based on assumptions, stereotypes, and statistics. What's a typical answer? What isn't? Right? It's all based on very wishy-washy, touchy-feely kind of vibes they get from you, and they end up hiring the person that they like the most. That's what's going on here. So is it a cliche? Yeah, every single part of this is. Now, if you're young and you're new to this process, I can perhaps sort of get into your headspace and predict how you feel about this. What you want to do is you want to be honest, right? You want to say, look, I'm not interested in having a sort of tap dance, wordplay, BS thing going on here. Let's cut right to the chase. I'm going to be honest with you. This is what I'm looking for. This is who I am, blah, 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 right? And have it be authentic and all this kind of thing, right? You're not the only one that's realized that, if that's what this is kind of driving this. Why do you think people choose to do this kind of thing instead of just be completely authentic and say, just lay it all out, put all your cards on the table and say, look, this is my strength, this is my weakness, this is what I'm looking for, right? The reason why people don't do that is because it doesn't work, okay? It should work, but it doesn't. One of the reasons for that is because they've just met you. They have no idea who you are, and you're making a first impression. And the first thing that comes out of your mouth, that's going to be who you are to them, right? So that's why they go through this silliness, right? Because at the end of the day, humans behave the same way. You yourself behave the same way that these people behave when someone is making a first impression with you, right? And the person who comes in and says, look, I'll be honest, I'm not super into this, I'm not super into that, here's a weakness of mine, here's another weakness of mine, but I'm a hardworking Joe, and I'm looking for a job, and that's why I'm here, right? Unfortunately, that does not make the best first impression. In fact, it makes quite a bad first impression compared with what they're doing here, where they say only nice things, what you can predict the person probably wants to hear to a large degree, right? It actually turns out that that's far more effective. And it's not just far more effective with these clowns, it's far more effective with all human beings in this situation, including you. So that's why people don't really do that, unfortunately. It would be a wonderful world if they did, but unfortunately you get punished for that. I, for one, would love to be able to say, look, let's just lay it all out here. This is what's good about me, this is what's bad about me, this is what I'm prepared to do, this is what I'm not prepared to do. This is what I bring, now. Does that line up with what you're looking for, right? The problem is that person will not get chosen over a person who says, listen, I am here to, I'm looking for a company that does X, that's what these people do. I'm looking for exactly what, you guys are looking for. And, you know what I mean? Like it's called the sales process. That's what it is, basically. You amplify all your strengths, you try and diminish all your weaknesses and present that, all wrapped up in a sort of package of friendliness, likability, and rapport. And that's what human beings respond to. And therefore, that's why people do this. So the whole thing's a cliche, and if you could look at it as you are not being genuine to a degree, yes, that's intentional. Because if someone's going to form a first impression of you, you want it to be a very positive one. And then as you get to know them, then you can sort of sketch out a more accurate view as you go and manage, like, what you reveal and all that kind of stuff. So it's more authentic. But in the beginning, you want to lead with strengths. You do not want to lead with, let's get this over with. Here's all my weaknesses. Now, where do we stand? It's like, okay, well, where we stand with you being eliminated for that. Goodbye. I'm not going to give you enough time to get to your strengths. So there you go. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but that's what I'd say about it. Mordecai says, I have an HR meeting tomorrow. The position applied for is a 12-month contract as what's BI? Business intelligence? Don't use acronyms. I'm talking to people all over the world in every industry. Don't use acronyms. Is a 12-month contract as business intelligence and database operations specialist. What is an HR interview? They said it's non-technical. Then what is it? Well, if that's what they said, here's my assumption that it's not going to be a technical interview about the finer points of business intelligence or the tools you use or your technical background or skill testing questions, right? It's going to be a standard job interview where it's more about you as a person than your qualifications. Okay? So if you don't know what I mean, job interviews, they're really about who you are as a person. It's not about whether you're qualified or not. You see, in theory, that was what the job application was for, to determine if you're qualified or not, right? That's why you sent in your resume and things like that, right? They want to see what education you have, what experience you have, right? And then they're basically going to draw a conclusion. Are you qualified for the job or are you not, right? Now, the only people they bring in for interviews are people who are all qualified for the job on paper. The only question mark there is if they lied on their resume. That's the only way that, there would be a question about that after the application phase, right? That's why they do background checks and things like this, right? So it doesn't make any sense to bring to a job interview candidates who on paper are not qualified to do the job. Even if you loved them, they did a fantastic interview. If you were the recruiter, you come out of there thinking, wow, that person was amazing, right? You still can't hire them because they can't do the job, right? They don't have the education or they don't have the experience to do it, right? So job interviews are not about, are you qualified, right? By definition, everyone they've brought in for an interview is qualified. They meet the minimum requirements that these people have from a technical point of view to do the job, right? They're all qualified. Now, if you could hire all of them, a lot of times you would. The problem is that you've got many people who are qualified that have applied, and you've only got one job, right? So you might be talking to 6 people. You're interviewing 6 people. They're all qualified, right? But you have to pick between them. So you start looking at who they are as a person. You could be a genius. You could be technically qualified for a job, but if you have like if you get violent all the time in the workplace, it's just not going to work, right? So certain aspects of who you are as a person, they completely trump how qualified you are. You know what I mean? They overrule the fact that you're perfectly qualified to do it. For example, if you have a history of quitting every job you start after a month, they'll probably not want to hire you because it's likely that if they did hire you, you would quit this job after a month, right? So it's not really a question about how qualified you are. It's about who you are as a person. That's what job interviews are about, right? Okay, so an HR interview, in the way these people are using that term, I assume is a standard job interview where they're not really grilling you about the, like, do you know business intelligence? No, that's not what the interview's about. It's about, we want to know why you left your previous jobs. We want to know where you figure you're going to be in 5 years. What are you looking for? We're getting a sample of your communication skills, how professional you are, how easy you are to deal with. This is almost like a mini sample of what you're going to be like on the job, right? And already, if the interview is awkward and there's, it's very, very tense, they're figuring, okay, this is what you're going to be like on the job if they hire you. You know what I mean? So they might reject you. It has nothing to do with how much you know about business intelligence. It's about who you are as a person, right? So that's probably what they mean. It's going to be a typical job interview, right, where they talk about this stuff. Hopefully that makes sense. There are 11 people here. Thank you for being here. Check out my courses if you're looking for all my advice all in one place that will teach you how to get hired not only in the posted job market, but in the hidden job market. Check out that course, link in the description. Also, if you want to improve yourself, you want to really tack on some high-level communication skills, check out that course. Everything I learned on my journey going from a supervisor when I started to a CEO when I ended my corporate career. Everything I learned on that journey with regard to communication skills, I put into that course. So if you're interested in learning that, check out that course. Link in the description. Get in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. We are at the end of the questions so far. So if you are wondering something or struggling with something, let me know what it is, and I'll be happy to help you with that if I possibly can. If you are looking to learn business being the scientific study of how to make money, check out that course. Best bang for the buck anywhere if you're trying to learn business. For what it's worth, I have an MBA and I've been the CEO of a company. And, if you're looking to learn business, it's a really, really useful thing to know. Anybody who's rich basically knows finance. It's a huge chunk of what you learn in an MBA. So you don't piss your money away, right? You can shepherd it. You understand how to retain it, how to make it grow, things like that, right? And there's a lot of other very useful topics in there. Now, if you're just kind of curious, you don't necessarily want to go back to school and take a 2-year program and take 2 years off your life and pay 5 figures for it, this is the next best alternative. You learn the same material from the same sources for a tiny fraction of the cost, and you go at your pace. It's entirely on your schedule and to the depth that you are interested. So check that out, link in description if you're interested. You're welcome, Mordecai. Hopefully that answer helped somewhat. Yeah, so as I was saying at the beginning of this chat, I had 10 minutes before I was supposed to go live, and I blew one of my monitors. My monitors would not come back. When you turn on your computer, I'm using a desktop PC with 2 monitors. When you turn on your computer, usually you see things on your monitors, right? It'll say, welcome, like a splash screen or something. And this one didn't. I'd been having problems with it lately. It was kind of intermittent, and it finally sort of just was dead completely. So I had to replace my monitor like a few minutes before I went live, and the one I'm using now is beige. It's old, and it's beige, and everything on it now looks yellow, and the screen is smaller. But hopefully if you can hear me and see me fine, then this is working. Shelby Sue, or Sue Shelby, says, thank you for these lives. I always learn something and gain confidence in interviewing because of it. Well, good. That's great to hear, Sue, or Shelby. And thank you for saying so. I appreciate that. And that's why I do this. If you have any questions about careers, job search, any aspect of it, like resumes, job interviewing, where are the jobs, right? That's a critical thing. If there's one thing I could make people understand, it would be the hidden job market, right? And since we're at, we don't have any immediate questions, I like to do this every once in a while. I like to do ChatGPT, so then people know that things are not just my opinion. They don't come from me. They are true. They are, a thing, right? So for example, of all the jobs out there that exist that I could get, how many of those are posted publicly so that I could discover them by doing an internet job search? Right? I always start off with this question because some of the people that are just joining us, a lot of people, especially young people, are not aware of this. So only about 20% of the jobs out there are posted publicly. The remaining 80% of jobs exist in something called the hidden job market, meaning that they are filled through networking, referrals, or internal hiring process that are not publicly advertised. So what this means is that a lot of jobs, they're out there, they exist, you could get them, but they don't post the job publicly. They're not promoting it. You post a job publicly when you're trying to find more candidates for it. Okay? That's why you would publicize a job. You would pay someone to post it and to publicize it, to promote it, right? So the reason why most jobs are not posted publicly is because they're not having problems finding candidates for them, right? For those jobs. Usually they're very good jobs. And the moment the hiring manager mentions to people around them, oh, I'm posting, we're actually hiring, in this work group, the moment they do that, they already get people coming to them, whether they're employees or, acquaintances or coworkers, whatever, coming to them saying, hey, I've got a friend or a brother or an ex-coworker that I think would be perfect for this. Shall I tell them to send you their resume, right? So they're not really starved for candidates. They're getting people coming to them. So why would you then say, no, I'm not gonna check out those people. Instead, I'm going to go and interview strangers, right? That I don't know. That could be axe murderers. They could be obfuscated and lied about everything on their resume. They could be criminals. Like you have no idea. They could be crazy. I'm going to talk to them rather than a personal recommendation from someone I work with that I trust. Like that wouldn't make any sense, right? So that's one of the reasons why most jobs are not posted. 80% of them are not posted. So everything you see online when you do a job search, you go to Indeed, you go to LinkedIn, you go to Workopolis or ZipRecruiter or Monster or all those aggregators. You go to company websites. All the jobs you find online, all of that, that's 20% of what's actually out there. The other 80% is not posted, right? So that's why you really want to tune into the hidden job market and you really want to go after those jobs. Everybody can. There's no conspiracy. There's no gatekeepers. It's actually a beautiful thing because what you find is that HR organization and companies like recruiters and the director of HR and all their minions, right? They're not gatekeeping the hidden jobs. Recruiters only deal with posted jobs, right? So 80% of the jobs out there, they're really not being gate-kept by a recruiter. So all the BS you normally have to deal with, that you deal with when you search for jobs, right? Like ATS systems and fake jobs and, ghosting. You don't have to deal with any of that. That's the cool thing about it. So tune into this stuff. Okay. If this is all new to you, you got some research to do. And look, I'm not asking you to take my opinion on anything. I'm trying to encourage you to go out and do your own independent research. Okay. You can start with things like ChatGPT or an AI tool of your choice or a Google search. Okay. This is a thing. Petro says, please allow me to express my gratitude for these live streams. I find them very thought-provoking. Well, good. That's what I'm kind of going for. There's a lot of stuff out there that for various reasons they don't tell people up front, especially young, innocent people that don't have a lot of experience with this stuff. There's a variety of different reasons for that. I like to tell people that stuff. I mean, the reaction I usually get is people go, BS. Surely it can't work like that. Well, it does. It does work like that. And I'm not asking, like I said, I'm not asking you to take my word for anything. What I'm trying to get you to do is go do your own independent research on all of this stuff. Learn about it yourself directly, not just by listening to advice. In the beginning, you listen to advice, but then you go out and you try things. You see for yourself, right? No one can tell you something can't be done if you've just done it. You know what I mean? And I've had that situation in my life a lot, where you've just done something and then people tell you, no, that doesn't work like that. That's impossible. And it's like, they're obviously wrong because you just did it, but they're informed by hearing about it from other sources. So they think they know. They haven't actually done it. They haven't tried to do it. They've been told it doesn't work like that, so they just repeat it. They parrot it without any kind of critical thinking skills in there, right? Sometimes it's there's an incentive structure. They're an interested party that is trying to get you to think a certain thing because it's to their advantage if you don't. And there's a lot of that too. Anyway, again, the chat, ask me questions. There are 13 people here on this beautiful Monday morning. As the sun comes and goes in my office, I feel a need to adjust the brightness of my cameras. But I'm here to answer your questions. So I'm really feeding off questions I get. So get in the chat and ask me some questions. Otherwise, I will probably just talk off the top of my head for a while, which is probably not that great. And I will have to, I'll have to shut this down after a while. So let me know what you're struggling with, what you're wondering, what you're worried about. Let's talk about it. If I can help you out, I will. Special thanks to Tong, Petro, Mordecai, Shelby Sue for participating so far. You guys are awesome. Let's do more of this while I'm waiting here. So, okay. For some people, this might be new, right? Okay, so let's go deeper. So what is the hidden job market? Let's just keep going. Okay, it refers to job opportunities that aren't advertised publicly. Okay, there's no conspiracy. There's, this is very, very real. Now, how do you get those? Okay, number one, networking. That's basically it, networking. Now, networking, that term, it means many different things, right? It's a very nebulous term. It means people talking or communicating with other people. That's all it means, right? So, for example, the thing that I think a lot of people imagine when you say networking, especially introverts and technical people who aren't super extroverted, they imagine, oh, you just have to know a million people, right? And yes, that is one type of networking, right? But that certainly isn't the only type. For example, another option is to reach out to employers, right? I wonder if I can do this. So let's see here. Let's pick a random city, okay? Let's pick a random city. Now, where, I don't know, what's the stupidest name of a place that you've known? In North America, there's quite a lot, right? Okay. Here, how about Saskatoon? That's a place. Okay, it's a city in Canada, in the province of Saskatchewan, right? That just rolls off the tongue. So now let's pretend that you lived in Saskatoon, right? With all the cool people. That's where they all live, right? So an experiment, let me show you. You may know this or you may not, but if you don't, you might find this interesting. So let's pretend that you live in Saskatoon, right? The bright center of all our worlds, right? Now, you're in Saskatoon. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to try and find employers, people that could hire you, okay? So I'm looking at a big map of Saskatoon. Now, what's my vocation or my profession? What do I do, right? Let's say customer service, okay? I've never done this before. Customer service. Now, the problem is customer service, there's many different industries that do customer service, right? But let's just start with customer service, okay? So I've got like 4 things that pop up, right? So here, UPS customer service. Okay, it gives me their address, it gives me the name of the company, and it gives me their website. Now, if I really wanted to, and I was unsophisticated, what I could do is I could go to their website, look at their career section, see if they're posting a job. That's not what we're going to do, and that's not what the point of this is. Okay? But that's one option. Here's another one. Crestline Ambulance's Customer Care Center. So you got a whole care center where they do presumably customer service, right? But this is to do with ambulances. Now, if we zoom into Saskatoon, okay, and I say search this area, okay, we find there's even more. We zoom in and we find there's even more targets. So we've got Purolator. Why does Purolator come up? I guess shipping service. I guess that might have something to do with customer service, right? Sask Power. Okay. Corporate office. So I don't know if that has anything to do with customer service. But like, you get the point. Now, if you had a specific like profession or something, like, I don't know, you make, cardboard manufacturing. I don't know. Okay, it's zooming into a place for some reason. I don't want that. I'm going to zoom out. I want to look at the whole city of Saskatoon. Okay, here we go. And then I'm going to say, where's that button? Or maybe I can just do this. Oh, okay. Well, maybe this is the only cardboard manufacturer in Saskatoon or something. But it's found it, right? Okay, so cardboard. Let's do cardboard. Let's say I have skills in cardboard. You'll have to also forgive me. My computer is very old and slow, so it's not very... So here, I'm looking at all of Saskatoon here. I could say search this area. And let's say I had 20 years experience in cardboard manufacturing or something. So what do we got here? Jayco Holdings floor protector or packaging supply store. Okay. UPS shipping. Okay, so they deal with cardboard, right? What else we got? Okay, Sarcan Recycling, Bottle and Redemption Center. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that, like, depending on what experience you have and what you're looking for, like, as you see, we're entering different things. Cardboard manufacturer. You could do packaging. You could do everything associated. You could just do manufacturing. And, what this is doing is it's finding a list of employers that are physically near you. Okay, so, it may not be the exact process you follow for purely remote jobs, but for jobs that you would commute to, that would, you physically go to work, right? You can see if you lived like in the center of Saskatoon, you can see like around you. Let's zoom in. If you lived right here at this junction, okay? Now, even this area, if I say search this area, okay, yes, you see it's found a couple more, right? So you've got church supplies, like if I said cardboard, recycling, Collector's Edge comic book store. Okay. Art supplies, that has to do with cardboard, I guess. Like, I'm searching for cardboard. So this is a way to find all the employers around you, right? You do multiple queries like this. You look at the entire city you're in. I would say about an hour commute time, like a radius around you, right? Now, this is giving you a ton of targets, a ton of potential employers, right? Now, for each one of these, if they look particularly promising, you've got their contact information, their website, their phone number, their email address, et cetera, et cetera. Now, where the real promising thing that I would encourage is you can then take this target, like for example, these people here, art placement, art supplies. You could go onto LinkedIn. You could do a people search in your geographic area, limit it to say Saskatoon, and then look up this company, art placement, art supplies, and you will look into this target down to the individuals. And you say, okay, here's the owner, here's the CEO, here's the head of the engineering department, here's the head of the marketing department, etc. And then those are the people that you can then reach out to over platforms like LinkedIn, because not only do you discover, who they are, and you can see their profile and stuff, but you can also then message them directly through that platform, right? So you can do outreach to these people. You don't have to know, you don't have a network full of people that you just happen to know in the cardboard industry in Saskatoon. You can go out, you could reach out to those people, you could discover them, and then go, and just like you would, apply for jobs, where you're like sending out one application after another to all kinds of job postings. That's how this can work. You send a pitch, like a little message. You say, hello, my name is X. I do this. I have 35 years in cardboard manufacturing. If you're looking for somebody who can do this, who can solve this problem, they can manufacture any type of cardboard product you can imagine. If you're looking for someone who can do that, let me know, because I know you guys are in this business and you do great work in this area, and I'd love to work with you. Something like that, right? And that's like a template message, and you can blast that out to like all of these employers, right? So like, we have lots of targets here. Just by goofing around for a couple of minutes, you're finding dozens and dozens of targets. Each of those targets has multiple people in it, right? That would be appropriate to reach out to. And that's something called direct outreach. You can arrive in a city, know absolutely nobody, and you can reach out directly to all these employers that have potential to hire you. They're in your industry. They hire people with similar backgrounds to yours, and this is a form of networking. This is probably the simplest and easiest form of networking you can do from the comfort of your own home. You don't have to meet a single person or talk to a single person. You don't have to pick up a phone or anything like that. But you're getting the word out there. Now, most of these people, just playing the odds, they won't be hiring for someone like you right now. The majority of them won't be. But statistically, some of them will be. Whether that's 5% of these people or 1%, they'll just happen to be hiring right now. They're looking for someone like you. So imagine if your message lands right in their lap, right when they realize they have to hire someone with those types of skills, right? Do I need to draw you a map? It works out perfectly, right? And that's what this is about. It's very similar to applying for jobs, where you blast out hundreds and hundreds of applications, if not thousands sometimes, to get one bite where they hire you, right? Similar idea, but the ratios are a bit more favorable when doing this. It's not thousands of applications. It's usually a couple hundred, if you know what you're doing. So anyway, this is one form of networking. If you want to learn more about that, check out that course. I cover that and many other things. Northern Nomad says, hey, companies expert. Hey, Northern Nomad. Some applause going on there. Thank you for being here. This is a live Q&A, so if you are wondering something or struggling with something when it comes to careers or job search, get in the chat. If you've been a subscriber to my channel for any amount of time, you should be able to get in the chat, and we can interact. I'll try and help you out if I can. Northern Nomad says, I have a strong job prospect, hopefully coming my way. It's contract to hire, but since I'm unemployed, I'm taking what I can get. Yeah, don't knock contract jobs necessarily. Sometimes they can be great sort of ways to get your foot in the door. And then once you're on the inside and they know you and they trust you and they see how good you are, then it opens up all kinds of doors afterwards. So what employers like to do is they like to do some kind of probationary period, right? That's what, given the choice, that's what they want to do, right? They want to just stick their toe in the water when it comes to a new employee and just see, like, okay, we recognize that the hiring process, the process of resumes and interviews, it's far from accurate. We get an impression of who you are, but that impression is not always accurate, right? So because we don't quite know who you are, we would like some kind of probationary period. We'd like you to start working here, and then we get to see who you really are. If our impression of you was correct or not, right? That's what employers love to do. The problem with probationary type stuff is it's a turnoff for in demand candidates, right? Like candidates that have a lot of value, that are highly prized. They're in demand. This is a turnoff for them. They don't want some contract position. They don't want some probationary thing. They want the full meal deal. They want full benefits, full salary, full security, like as one would expect if they're in demand, right? So that's kind of where that's what limits employers from doing this. But if employers had their way, they would have like a probationary period for every job, right? So it's an easy out if you hire someone and they're really not working out the way you expected they would, right? So, some contract jobs and stuff are actually really, really good. It's like a way into a really awesome place with a lot of opportunities. So hopefully you get this, Northern Nomad. I wish you every luck. Now, if you do, hopefully it works out. While you're there, you're serving out your contract period, okay? Take advantage of that access. You're like on the inside of this company now, right? So there's plenty of opportunities. First of all, to do basic things like get some references. So here's some professional references. You get in there, you get to know a few of the people. A few months later, you hit them up and say, hey, would you be comfortable being a reference for me? Could I use you as a reference? And provide your contact information to employers that are thinking of hiring me after my contract here is done. Would you be able to give me a good reference? And let them say, okay, right? That's the most basic thing. You could then also ask for letters of recommendation. Would you be comfortable writing me a recommendation either on LinkedIn or just a letter in letter format? Is that something that I could hit you up for, that you would feel comfortable doing for me? I'd really appreciate it. Then you walk out of there not only with references, professional references in your industry, but you have some glowing letters of recommendation from people that have worked with you. Yes, these are permanent employees, or maybe even your boss or your managers that have worked with you that are saying, yes, this person's awesome. It would be nice to leave with that in your back pocket. Also, while you're there's a lot of networking opportunities. You're on the inside of that company or that organization. While you're there, is someone hiring in any other department of the company? If they're not hiring here and they're not going to extend your job, not because they've got a problem with you, but they're just not hiring. Are they hiring in any other department of the company that you could put yourself forward for? Or does anyone else there know of any opportunities that they'd recommend you? Right? It's like networking opportunities. Go talk to the boss. Go talk to the boss's boss. Ask them about this business. Ask them about this company. And what they think of where the industry is going in the future. What skills are going to be needed? What's the technology going to look like? What's really going to be the make or break for succeeding in this industry? Ask some questions like that. They'll probably be very pleasantly surprised that you're tuned into that stuff, that you're interested, and they'll be very flattered that you care about what they think and you're listening attentively to their opinion on it. You know what I mean? That'll make them think very highly of you. And if there is a job at that company, a more permanent position, they might think, hey, maybe we should offer it to our close personal friend, Northern Nomad, who's really proved themselves during their term on a contract job here in our department. Right? So there's a lot of things you could walk out of there with, right? So make sure you do all that. Hopefully you get that. I wish you every luck. And if you do, consider, doing this stuff while you're there. Mr. X Pound Cakes. That's a good name. You could get like a tattoo across your forehead that says pound cake, baby cakes right across your forehead. If you've served some time and you walk out of there with that face tattoo, baby cakes, that's how you know you're badass. Nobody's going to mess with you when they see that. Does already having and having had for 4 years a remote job help in securing a different remote job? Yes, it certainly can. If so, is there an ideal place to try to leverage that pre-interview? Interview for what? Another remote job, like a second remote job? Does already having and having had for 4 years a remote job help in securing a different remote job? Yeah, I don't understand what you mean by pre-interview. If you're already interviewing for a second remote job, then obviously being able to say, I have experience doing a job very similar to this, obviously that'll help, right? But if you're not already interviewing for it and you're wanting to put yourself forward, you want to throw your name in the hat for another remote job, right? That's with this same organization. Yeah, you can get that too. And you do that a lot of times through networking, basically talking to people, talking to your boss. It starts with saying, I'm looking for any other remote job opportunities here. If they exist, I'd be very interested in hearing about those, and possibly speaking, to what the requirements are, right? I'm open to hearing about that stuff. I'm actively looking to discover any remote job opportunities here, and the fact that they already know you and they've worked with you for a while, that definitely is a major reason to put your hat in the ring. You're now a known quantity. They know you. All things being equal, they'd rather work with you than take a chance on some stranger. The stranger could be an axe murderer. They could be a criminal. They could be insane. They could have lied. Everything on their resume is a lie, right? They'd rather not run the risk of that by just working with someone they already know and trust, which is you, right? If you've worked there for some time, they obviously don't have an issue with you, so yes, definitely. So is there an ideal place to try and leverage? Yeah, it's called networking. So what you would do is you'd go and talk to your boss and you would say, something along the lines of, listen, I've been working here for a while and I got to say, I actually really like this environment, this organization. I feel comfortable here. If there were other opportunities here, I would definitely be interested. So I'm wondering if there are any plans to create or offer other positions in remote work or some remote positions here. Because if there are, I'd like to throw my name in the hat and my hat in the ring, right? It starts with that. And then you talk to coworkers and you say kind of the same thing. You say I'm working here. I've been working here for a while. I really enjoy it and I'd like to stay. And if there were other opportunities, I would go for them. Now, I don't know if you know of any other opportunities, but, if you do, I'd be interested in hearing about them. You go to your boss's boss, you go to other managers. Usually you have to go to people higher up than you because they are the ones that can help you, right? The problem with peers, people at your level, is that usually they can't help you directly. They might be able to connect you with someone who can help you, but they themselves usually can't give you a job, right? Because they're at the same level you are. So usually, this whole getting a job through networking thing, it involves you talking to people that are at least one level above you. So like your boss or your boss's peers. So if you work in a department, the head of department and the heads of other departments, and up, right? And there's very simple, straightforward ways of doing that. Learning how to approach people politely, professionally. You knock on their door, you say, hey, you got a minute? And then you ask them questions about them. Yeah, I work over there. I was wondering, I know you run this area. I was interested in getting your opinion. This industry or this type of work, where do you see it going in the next 5 years? What do you see coming in? What do you think the changes are going to be? What do you think skill sets are going to be? Are they going to change? Just ask them questions about this. And, most people will find it flattering. And that's how you learn. And that's how they get to know and like you. And, and then in response, you can say, wow, that's really interesting. If ever you hear about some opportunities in that, like you just described, I'd be interested in hearing about that, Okay, so like that's how these things kind of start. So that was Mr. Pound Cakes / Baby Cakes. Petro says, may I please ask which course are the best when looking into developing skills as a possible future leader? Are you talking about my courses that are on the screen, or are you talking about courses in general? If you're talking about courses in general, you're wanting to learn like soft skills, right? You see, being a leader, it really depends. You see, the problem is that has an actual, very clear technical definition, right? Leadership and being a leader, that's something that's studied in terms of business. Like if you're talking about leadership in a workplace, it's also studied in the military, like in a military environment, leading people, right? The key element is that you're influencing people. You're getting behaviors out of other people, right? The problem is that on the internet, people throw that word around, leadership. They throw it around where they're not using it correctly. Like technically they are interpreting it to mean something else, like being a very nice person, right? See, leadership simply, it means that you get behaviors from other people. That's all it means, right? Now, for example, you could be a leader who gets behaviors through punishment, right? Like, for example, you could be running you could be running a prison or something. You could be a prison warden, right? And you're tasked with having your prisoners not escape, having your prisoners follow the rules, having your prisoners stay healthy and, reasonably content, considering their situation, and having everything go smoothly, right? Like that's what you're tasked with, right? Now, there are many ways to get people to behave a certain way. One of them is to give them rewards. Another one, like for doing the thing you want. Another way is to give them punishments for not doing the thing you want, right? And then there's everything in between, right? So leadership, what it technically is in a business context, is someone who can get the desired behaviors, right? Using multiple different things, right? Obviously, we would certainly in an employment context, we would love to be able to, do this through positive reinforcement, through rewards and things like this, and quite honestly, in an employment situation, punishments really don't work long-term because people can always just opt out. They can say, screw it, I quit, right? That's different from the military. In the military, you can't just, if you're a soldier or something, you can't just say, screw it, I quit. I'm done now. I'm going to go home. You can't do that. So they have more capacity to influence by dishing out punishments and things. they can do that more in the military than you can do it in an employment situation. You know what I mean? Because ultimately, in an employment situation, people are there voluntarily. There's nothing forcing you to work for a company. You can quit anytime you want if it's not working for you. Right? You go get a different job in a much nicer place and you work there. Right? So, you know what I mean? So anyway, I'm going down this tangent here, but you asked about a course or something. May I please ask which course are the best when looking at developing leadership skills? So I'm assuming this is in a context of employment, like a workplace, okay? So therefore, you would, if you want to learn that properly, you would learn business, right? If you take a business degree like an MBA, like I've got on the screen there, that kind of thing, there's many areas of business. There's accounting, there's finance, there's marketing, there's economics, there's HR, there's entrepreneurship, there's, all kinds of different, like, sort of areas of it. If you're wondering about leadership per se, that's an area of business called organizational behavior. It's what studies how people behave in groups, like a workplace, right? It's a little bit of sociology, a little bit of psychology, a little bit of like almost like military type learning that they've done over a few thousand years. How to get people to do what you say and all act together in furthering a single goal, things like that, right? So that's the area you would study. Okay. Now within that, there's all kinds of soft skills, things like public speaking skills, right? Things like having personal charisma. So little isolated skills that can help you in influencing people in a workplace, which usually involves positive stuff like rewards on some level, right? So you could learn those individual skills, like public speaking. You don't learn how to do public speaking usually as part of an MBA, for example, or you don't learn about personal charisma as part of an MBA, right? But you could argue those are very useful things indeed, right? Now, I have a course here on communication skills. That's one of the soft skills. It's a subset of like leadership, essentially. It's a subset of organizational behavior. So, I mean, I have that. You also have this in terms of like, how to learn business. And it teaches you every area of business, not just organizational behavior, right? So anyway, these are possible starting points, possible ways in. It really depends on, do you care about the individual soft skills, like learning how to, have personal charisma? Or are you learning more? Are you interested more in like the theory of like how to get people behave the way you want? For example, studying things like what's the source of power? You learn it derives from authority. It also derives from dependency. Things like this, right? It depends which way you want to come at it. So there's a lot of things in there. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's kind of possibly a starting point, I guess. But I would say learn the theory behind things and then go out and start practicing it. There may be opportunities to practice. You can certainly practice soft skills, right? So, or if you learn the theory, you can maybe you work as a worker in a workplace. You can observe like, oh, okay, like now I see these weird things that nobody understands in a workplace. Like, why does this employee seem to have more power than the boss, and the boss can't really do anything to that employee? That's counterintuitive. I don't understand that. And you learn the theory and you go, now I get why that's happening. I see what's going on there now. I know the theory. So whichever way you want to come at the problem, there's different ways in. Anyway. Petro says, I'm not planning on becoming a manager, but I would love to be a better team player and team leader. My manager had stated entrusting more responsibility to me and would like to do a good job. Okay, that's a great start. What I'd recommend, like, look, obviously I'm going to recommend my own course for things, okay? But it's based on what you study in a business program, okay? So, for example, in my course, just like in an MBA, you take different courses within that. The course on organizational behavior might be of real interest to you. It explains the different methods for getting people to behave the way you would have them behave, right? That would be pretty useful to know, right? What the theory is behind these things. What makes people want to do what you say, right? What are all the different, ways that you can get someone to do what you say? And now that's all laid out for you, you kind of go, okay, I'm going to choose this method, except when I'm faced with something like maybe insubordination, in which case I would use this method, or something like that. You understand the theory behind it. And then maybe you tack on some soft skills, like conversational skills or, whatever, personal charisma that, amplify your ability to do that. Right? So you can maybe come at it from that way. Mr. Poundcakes says, hey, thank you for such a thoughtful response. Really appreciate you doing these live streams and helping us. You're absolutely welcome, Mr. Poundcakes. Thank you for being here, and I'm glad you got something out of it. Tell all your little friends. Petro says, there is some pressure to apply for an interview as a customer executive. What's a customer executive? In just more than 6 months, and should it become necessary, step up to do so. I want to do my best. Okay, this is more about like that situation at work where you're wanting to learn the leadership skills. So as customer executive, does that mean like you work in customer service and you're like a go-to person that handles important customers, or you assist other employees in handling difficult cases of, that, or issues that customers might have, something like that? Is that what that is? Yeah, like the more you learn about leadership, like influencing, it's a very useful thing. Basically, like if you can be the person that everybody wants to work for and that gets results when you're leading a team, it's like the opposite of having a mutiny on your hands and having it be totally dysfunctional and everyone's confused and nobody wants to, everyone's demotivated. Like you're the opposite of that. You sort of rally people together. You make them want to do the work. You make them understand their role in this team and what they have to do. You make them care about, wanting the result, and they feel like they're doing it as a personal favor to you, and they're happy to do it for you because they look up to you. Like that would be a good thing. Knowing how to behave and communicate with people so that you get that kind of response, that would probably be a useful thing, right? So yes, that's what you could get when you know the theory, and then you have some skills, and then you have some experience putting the theory and these skills into practice. That would make you a highly valuable employee, right? You'd be like at least at supervisor level, possibly even up a notch from there, just like alone, just having those skills. Right? So definitely that's a good thing to learn. So it's good that you're tuned in enough to want to learn that stuff. That's definitely admirable. And that's how I would say you could do it. It might not be the quickest way to learn it, but it would be the most thorough way to learn it that will have the biggest impact on your career. Learn the theory, learn some skills, and then start putting them into practice. Get in the chat. We've reached the end of the chat. We're coming up to the hour and 15-minute mark for this live stream. So if you have any questions, get into the chat, ask me some questions, and I will do my best to answer them. If I don't get a lot of questions, I'll be winding it down. I do have another live stream that is scheduled 35 minutes from now. So either way, I'm going to be back at that time. And that's an episode of a different live stream I call Honest HR Nitrous. I do that one several times a week. That's where we talk about, hiring and job search and that stuff, but not from a theoretical point, from the point of view of reality. What's the gritty reality? What's actually going on out there? And what are we seeing? So fake jobs, ghosting, that kind of stuff, like in all its ugly glory, shall we say. We really get into it. So that's happening 35 minutes from now. If anybody here has any last questions, please put them in the chat, and I will be happy to try and answer them for you. Check out my courses. If you're between jobs right now, you're kind of confused about what to do, check that out. That is all my advice all in one place. Not just to get posted jobs, that's definitely a part of it, but also to get hidden jobs. Okay, hidden jobs, if you don't know, we talked about that earlier. We were on ChatGPT, so you can see that this doesn't come from me. Only 20% of available jobs are posted publicly. The remaining 80% of jobs exist in the hidden job market. That's what that is. The jobs that are here, that you could get, they're out there, but they're not posted publicly. You tend to get those jobs, in one word, through networking. Okay, now if you don't know anybody, that's fine. You don't need to know anybody. You can reach out to employers. And I showed everybody a way of doing that earlier in this live stream, where you go on like Google Maps to find the employers around you in different areas. And then you go on LinkedIn to see inside of those employers to the individuals. And then you can also reach out to them that way too. So, there's a lot of things. In a word, how do you get... what is a hidden job market? How do you access it? In a word, networking. Now, if this is all new and this is kind of intimidating, you don't know what to do, or you're a technical introvert like me, you want to learn that stuff, check out that course right there. That really goes into it. Step into this wonderful universe of jobs and employment opportunities that are not being gate-kept by recruiters and the HR organization. Welcome to reality, where you don't have to go through those people to get tremendous opportunities. Right? That's how it works for most people, but it's a little bit of a well-kept secret. It's not the default obvious thing that you've heard about. So if this is new and this seems kind of weird and strange, don't take my word for any of this. Go do your own independent research. That's what I'm trying to encourage everyone to do. And you will be surprised at what you find if this is all new. It's good news. It's very, very good news. Okay? If you don't love applying for posted jobs and being one of like 1,000 people that applies, if you don't love the usually disrespectful and dehumanizing way that you're treated by recruiters when you do apply for jobs, because you're one of 1,000 and they can afford to treat you like cattle and this sort of thing, right? If you're not a fan of that, this is tremendously good news. Also, the good jobs tend to be in the hidden job market. Every job I've gotten in the last 15, 20 years has been in the hidden job market. All the contract work I've done, all the consulting stuff I've done, it's all hidden. It's not advertised publicly or promoted. So tune into this. It's to your advantage to learn about it. Even if you're an introvert, even if you're a technical type person, this is really the keys to the kingdom here. Find a lot of incredible employment opportunities. Great employers go through these channels to find people. They don't go to, the sort of public bulletin board. It's hard to get talent that way. There are talented people, but they're in a sea of people that aren't really that talented, So that's why it's not the best way to find those people. It's actually one of the worst ways you can try and get a job is just looking at posted job postings. Public job postings. Okay, well, I think we've reached the end of the chat. There's not a lot of questions, so that's fine. I will be back in half an hour on this channel with another live stream where we're answering your questions. So come back in half an hour if you do have anything you're wondering about or struggling with. I go live Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You can see my schedule. It's posted on my YouTube channel. So go to my YouTube channel's homepage and you can see that. In the meantime, check out my courses. I don't work one-on-one with individuals. I'm not a career coach. I don't do that kind of work. I'm a business consultant. I work with businesses one-on-one. But for the job search stuff, I have these 3 courses that apply to different aspects of careers, and the best bang for the buck for the price of like getting a career coach for like an hour, you get an entire course from me. So multiple hours of videos and things. Check out this course. That's probably the most immediate for everyone here. It's my Get Hired course. All my advice on how to get a job, whether it's through the posted job market or the hidden job market, it's all in there in a logical sort of layout with processes and templates and all that kind of stuff. So check that out. If alternatively you're looking to improve your career, work on your communication skills, which can open doors for you. It can make you a contender for management type positions. Okay. Check out this course here. Okay. Write like a professional. It's about, the title talks about writing, but it's basically about communication. So it's one of the things that you have to tack on to climb the ladder. So communication skills are very important. So check that out to improve your communication skills. Everything I learned in my journey from going from a supervisor when I started to a CEO when I ended, everything I learned about communication skills along the way, I put into that course. And if you're wanting to learn business, the scientific study of how to make money, which is always a good thing to know for a variety of reasons, check out that course, the $100 MBA. That teaches you business. And someone was asking about like leadership and stuff. That includes that. So yeah, check those out. I'll be back in half an hour, and I'm live Monday, Wednesday, Friday on this channel. So come back if I can help you out. Thanks very much. You guys are awesome. Take care, and I'll see you soon.